Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change your whole life. When Mark opened his door one cold November night to a shivering woman and her little boy, he never imagined that single moment would turn his world upside down. He wasn't rich, he wasn't even comfortable, he was a struggling single dad doing his best to keep the lights on. But when he saw that frightened mother clutching her child on the side of the road, he couldn't just drive past. What he didn't know was that this simple act of compassion would lead to a miracle that would change not only his future, but his son's too. Everyone, welcome back to Kindness in Action, where we share true stories that prove compassion can transform lives. If you believe the world could use more kindness, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Every story we tell starts with people like you who believe that kindness still matters. Mark Jennings lived in a small town in Ohio with his 8-year-old son, Dylan. Life hadn't been easy. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier after a long illness, leaving Mark to raise their boy alone. Between long shifts at the factory and the mounting bills, every day felt like a battle. Still, Mark tried to stay positive for Dylan's sake. It was a Friday night, snow was falling thick and heavy, and Mark was on his way home after a double shift. His old pickup truck rattled as it crawled along the icy road. That's when he saw them, two figures huddled under a flickering streetlight. A woman and a small boy, maybe 6 or 7, sitting on a bench with nothing but a thin blanket wrapped around them. Mark's first thought was, I can't afford to get involved. But his second thought was his late wife's voice, soft and clear in his memory, if you can help, even just a little, do it. So he pulled over. The woman's name was Sarah, and her son was Ben. They had been living in their car until it broke down earlier that day. Sarah's voice trembled as she thanked him for stopping. Mark noticed her hands shaking from the cold, and without thinking twice, he offered them a place to stay, just for the night. When they arrived at Mark's small 2-bedroom house, Dylan was already asleep. Mark made up the couch for Sarah and her son and handed her a cup of hot tea. She kept saying she didn't want to be a burden, but Mark just smiled and said, sometimes, we all need a little help. The next morning, Sarah insisted on cooking breakfast to thank him. She made pancakes from scratch, humming softly in the kitchen while the boys laughed over cartoons. For the first time in a long while, the house felt full again, warm, alive, and hopeful. Over the next few days, Mark helped Sarah call shelters and look for a job. He even gave her rides to interviews before heading to the factory. She never talked much about her past, only saying she'd fallen on hard times after losing her job and her apartment. Mark didn't pry. He knew what it felt like to be down and just needed someone to believe in you. A week turned into 2. Then one evening, while Sarah was folding laundry, Mark got a call from his supervisor. The company was under new management, and there would be layoffs coming. Mark's heart sank. He couldn't afford to lose his job. The next morning, Sarah asked if she could come with him to the factory. I need to talk to someone there, she said mysteriously. Mark assumed she was hoping to find work. He didn't ask questions, he just gave her a ride like always. When they arrived, everyone was buzzing about the new CEO visiting that day. Mark was too worried to care. He clocked in and got to work, trying not to think about losing his only source of income. A few hours later, a hush fell over the factory floor. The manager announced, everyone, please welcome our new CEO, Ms. Sarah Lawson. Mark froze. He turned toward the voice, and there she was. Sarah, standing tall in a sharp navy blue suit, smiling warmly at the stunned crowd. Their eyes met. She gave him a small nod, her expression softening. After the announcement, she walked straight over to him. The entire room watched as she reached out and said, Mark, can we talk? He was speechless. She took him aside and explained everything. She had been living out of her car, but not because she was poor. After years in corporate life, she'd taken a break to understand what real people were going through, the workers who made the company run. When her car broke down, she'd refused to call for help, wanting to see how strangers treated someone with nothing to give in return. Mark's kindness had floored her. He hadn't judged her or asked for anything back. He'd simply opened his door. Then came the shock of a lifetime. Sarah smiled and said, I've been looking for someone to manage our new community outreach program, someone who understands struggle and compassion. If you'll accept, the job's yours. Tears filled Mark's eyes. Are you serious? He whispered. She nodded. You changed my life, Mark. Now let me help change yours. When Mark told Dylan the news that night, his son jumped into his arms. "Mom would be proud of you," the boy said softly. And for the first time in years, Mark felt like he could breathe again. Weeks later, Mark began his new role, helping others in tough situations, just like he'd helped Sarah. The factory was improving under her leadership, focusing on people instead of just profits. Sarah often visited the outreach center, always reminding Mark that his kindness had inspired it all. Kindness doesn't ask for recognition. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect person. It simply acts. Mark didn't have much to give, just a warm home, a helping hand, and a heart that cared. But that was enough to change 2 lives, and, in return, his OWNSO. The next time you see someone struggling, remember this story. You never know what miracles your kindness might set in motion. Thank you for watching Kindness in Action. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Because every act of kindness, no matter how small, truly matters.